Welcome, focus learners, to today's Explainer. We are jumping right into a really fascinating and honestly totally mind-bending question today. Is the artificial intelligence we use every day actually a conscious creator? You know, it is so incredibly easy to look at a stunning piece of generated art or just a flawless block of code and assume, right, there's a conscious mind at work in there. But today, we're going to completely shatter that neo-god illusion. We're going to look right past that slick interface to uncover the cold, mechanical reality that's actually running the show. Okay, let's dive into this. I want to start by dropping the floor out from under a really basic assumption we all kind of share. Do computers actually process meaning? When you type a highly complex, nuanced prompt into a large language model, it intuitively feels like the machine really grasps your words, doesn't it? But the reality? The machine is utterly, completely blind to human meaning. Down at the bare metal, your processor only understands the physical realities of electrical resistance and discrete voltages. It literally does not understand your intent at all. And to really hammer that home, consider this staggering statistic: 80 to 90%. That is the percentage of modern AI compute cycles that are actually just probabilistic, hardware-level approximations. Wrap your head around that for a second. When these massive models do their heavy lifting, they aren't actually calculating absolute, exact mathematical truths. They are fundamentally just guessing. They're making highly educated approximations right at the hardware level, just so they can process oceans of data at blistering speeds. So, to really see how this completely changes digital creativity, here's the roadmap for our descent and ascent today. First, the grand computational illusion. Second, bare metal reality. Third, missing biological friction. And finally, number 4, the sovereign pilot. Starting off with Section 1, the grand computational illusion, exposing the ghost in the machine. We have this habit, right? We often project this incredibly romantic 18th century myth of the solitary genius onto AI. We just love the idea of a lone intelligence pulling brilliant original ideas out of an absolute vacuum. But what we're actually dealing with is much better described by the cultural theorist Roland Barthes. He had this concept called the scriptor. Generative AI is the ultimate digital scriptor. It is essentially a highly sophisticated mechanical vessel, like a massive mental kaleidoscope. It just blindly processes, mimics, and recombines our shared databases of pre-existing human language and culture. It forms new patterns, sure, but it does this without a single shred of actual conscious origination. To really picture how this works, think of the universal translator from classic sci-fi. AI operates as a sort of von Neumann Babelfish. It blindly ingests one format, like an English text prompt, coming straight from your warm, beautifully messy human imagination, which researchers playfully refer to as OS alpha, and it maps it across a wildly complex mathematical space to spit out a completely new format, like Python code. But the absolutely vital takeaway here is that it is blindly translating. It does not truly comprehend a single word it processes. All right, let's take our descent straight down to the physical silicon. Section 2, bare metal reality, the hardware constraints. And this brilliantly illustrates why AI hallucinates with such incredible confidence, or why it sometimes just fails spectacularly. Inside our computer chips, there is a very stark divide. On one side, you have the ALU, surveyor, the arithmetic logic unit. It is deterministic, it's rigid, and it's exact. For the surveyor, 1 + 1 = exactly 2 every single time. But massive neural networks, they don't primarily use the surveyor. They rely heavily on the FPU gambler, the floating point unit. The FPU handles complex, continuous math by essentially throwing darts at a board. It makes probabilistic, lossy approximations to achieve those blistering speeds we talked about. You are literally trading exact, bitwise certainty for highly educated guesswork. Relying on that lossy FPU math creates a massive liability. It's something known as the wood chipper effect. Because the FPU is fundamentally making statistical guesses and rounding numbers off, it acts exactly like a digital blender. Or, well, a wood chipper. It rapidly consumes data and churns out approximations that physically and permanently destroy the forensic traceability of the original data. Once your unique, specific data goes into that grinder, it's turned into a fungible venison burger. You can never reverse engineer the original animal. Exact digital truth is just lost in the hardware itself. Now let's ascend from the silicon back up to biology. Section 3, missing biological friction, the philosophy of true creation. Now that we've seen the cold, guessing reality of the hardware, we have to look at why true authorship always needs a living, breathing human. To anchor this, let's turn to the philosopher Hannah Arendt and her concept of praxis. Praxis is this active, engaged doing that is completely and inextricably tied to lived human experience and societal context. True creation isn't just about rendering an output. It requires an inner drive that's rooted in mortality. It requires the raw survival instinct and the sheer physical struggle of staring down a blank page. A machine running on pure electrical resistance fundamentally lacks this entirely. The contrast here is just stark. On the human side, we have biological friction. We experience joy, grief, survival, and all that messy human truth. We navigate this massive, vibrant ecosystem. But on the execution side, the silicon faces absolutely zero friction. An algorithm has literally never stubbed its toe. It's never felt heartbreak. It has no inner self to express. It is simply a pure, unyielding metronome of clocked voltages. Because the algorithm entirely lacks the emotional and biological friction of lived reality, it is completely incapable of originating genuine meaning. Which leads us to our final section. Section 4. The Sovereign Pilot, Reclaiming the Semiotic Bridge. So the crucial point is, if the machine is just a blind scriptor built on guessing hardware, how do we safely project our messy, complex intent across this massive divide into the unforgiving reality of the machine? We have to cross the semiotic bridge. Step 1 is our human intent, that actual spark of meaning originating in our minds. But to get all the way to step 3, the hardware execution, we have to pass through step 2, structured text. Strict deterministic text, like code or highly precise prompts, acts as the single safest way to compile our fluid imagination into exact machine action. I mean, think about it. We are quite literally tricking rocks into thinking by using lightning and extremely precise language. But crossing this bridge carries a heavy real-world burden. Because the AI scriptor is probabilistic and fundamentally just guesses, it is going to sometimes guess wrong. It hallucinates, and this introduces the terrifying legal reality of agentic tort. Tech companies actually design these systems using you, the human pilot, as a moral crumple zone. Just like the front of a car is specifically designed to absorb a physical impact, you are positioned in the loop to absorb the ethical, legal, and societal impact when the probabilistic scriptor inevitably fails. The machine can't go to jail, right? You take the hit. So, to protect yourself and avoid just being a passive passenger waiting for a crash, you absolutely must actively apply what copyright law calls the sweat of the brow. This means you cannot just blindly trust the AI's probabilistic output. No way. You have to put in the exhaustive, painstaking manual labor to physically edit, aggressively prune, and rhetorically steer the machine. Your manual human intervention is the absolute only path to maintaining your exact intent and deterministic safety. The AI is simply the brush. You must fiercely remain the undeniable painter. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a lingering, truly existential question. We are entering an era where we are surrounded by incredibly powerful algorithmic scriptors. But if we abandon the semiotic bridge, if we stop applying the sweat of our brow and stop writing that deterministic text ourselves, who ultimately controls the physics of our reality? Will you step up as the sovereign pilot, or will you surrender your intent to the cold guessing of the machine? Definitely something to think about the next time you hit generate. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.